Hello and welcome to Guru Performance ISSN Diploma Research Review. In this video, I'll be providing an overview of the recent paper, Energy Expenditure and Body Composition Changes After an Isocaloric Ketogenic Diet in Overweight and Obese Men by Hall et al. In 2016. In sport, employing nutritional strategies designed to shift extra body fat is one of the many focuses when it comes to the topic of body composition. Others include using body composition to identify and understand physique characteristics in order to maximize performance, monitoring the maturation of an athlete, and assessing effective training and nutrition practices. Now, a particularly close eye on weight management occurs in weight class, gravitational, and aesthetic sports, where a reduction in weight is pursued in order to gain a competitive advantage. Athletes or just recreational gym goers who want to shift a few extra pounds will often have their own bias towards a particular diet. This often comes from suggested fashionable solutions found on the web. Amongst the most recent of these examples is that of the ketogenic diet. In some realms, it's been lauded with having the answer to hacking our physiology into fast-track fat loss. Now, the idea sounds fantastic and would entice many. As a practitioner, you'll most likely receive questions on such a diet. So today, I want to try and provide insight into what it is and reference a great paper that puts the ketogenic diet under the microscope and in perspective in relation to its impact on fat loss. But firstly, what is a ketogenic diet? Well, essentially, it's an extreme version of a low carbohydrate diet, whereby carbohydrates are reduced often to no less than 50 grams per day, with moderate protein and the rest being left to dietary fat. In terms of the effects of consuming such a low carbohydrate diet, our energy regulation needs to adapt. It is important to understand that our body is programmed to tightly regulate blood glucose concentrations, as vital organs such as the brain need glucose to function. However, when consuming a diet with minimal carbohydrates, this results in storage forms of glucose to run low. As a result, your body automatically finds a new way to meet its fueling requirements. In this case, it is done through increasing ketone production in the liver as an energy substrate. Having a diet that drastically changes our substrate production leads some to believe that this is the kind of change-up that is needed in order to open the floodgates of fat loss, especially as there are mechanisms that would make you think it is plausible. One such theory is that low carbohydrate diets mean low insulin, which means more fat released from the cell. Now, let me expand on this. You see, when carbohydrates are ingested, the pancreas senses the rise in blood glucose, and insulin is secreted in a bid to clear this excess glucose from the blood to maintain a tightly regulated gradient. Now, the increase in insulin plays a role in suppressing fat oxidation and increasing fat storage. As a result, insulin is mistakenly looked upon as the kryptonite that hinders our fat loss efforts. You see, the acute effects of insulin are when many low-carb advocates kind of close up their mental model of obesity. As a result, one theory of going low carb is in its ability to increase the release of fatty acids from adipose tissue, providing ample energy for organs such as the heart, liver, and muscles, which increases one's metabolism and suppresses food intake. This all stems from low carb diets suppressing insulin levels. But in fact, the effects of insulin are important, but not game-changing from a fat loss perspective. Let's dig deeper. In science, we can test this mental model and ultimately test to see whether low levels of insulin due to a ketogenic diet are indeed the elixir to fat loss. So in 2016, the Nutrition Science Initiative gathered up a group of experts to conduct a study to test this theory, led by Kevin Hall. The study took 17 overweight or obese men and kept them in-housed in a metabolic ward with the tightest controls, whereby protein and calorie intake was fixed and changes were made to the amount of fats and carbohydrates consumed. This was to test whether there is a unique difference with going keto. Now, this was a crossover design, so for the first 28 days, the subjects consumed a high carbohydrate diet consisting of 300 grams of carbohydrate, of which 148 grams was sugar, 91 grams was protein, and 91 grams of fat. For the last 28 days, they were given a ketogenic diet, whereby carbohydrate intake was just 31 grams per day, protein was the same as the high carb diet, and fat reached 212 grams to ensure calories were the same between diets. Now, this is important to note that the initial weeks of the study, subjects had their energy intake altered in a bid to have them weight stable. Now, to give you insight into how strict this study was for ensuring subjects kept to their set diets, subjects were only allowed visitors in an area where they could be supervised in a bid to ensure no food was exchanged. The main outcome measures were energy expenditure and 24-hour respiratory quotient, the latter being a measurement for gauging what the body is fueling off during the day. Secondary outcome measures were to assess body composition, which was measured by a DEXA, a 3-component model for assessing fat tissue, lean body mass, and bone density, along with blood and urine measurements. Okay, so what were the results? While the initial aim of the study wasn't to have the subjects losing fat mass, this happened anyway, providing further support for refuting the carbohydrate insulin theory. It's important to bear in mind that the results are from the final 6 weeks of the 8-week study, as the initial 2 weeks, as I highlighted, were when the researchers were refining the subject's baseline diet. So by the end of the study, the team found that there was an increase in metabolism during the day and at sleep when going keto compared to a high-carb diet, which initially went up by 100 calories above the baseline diet. So we can hypothesize, due to the other data provided, that this was largely down to the change in substrate to help fuel organs such as the brain. However, the rise waned over time and pretty much came back down to baseline by the end of the 4-week ketogenic diet. In the ketogenic diet phase, insulin levels reduced by 47%, increasing fat oxidation and ketone production. However, over the span of the entire study, 2.2 pounds was lost in fat mass, half a pound per week occurring in just 2 weeks of the high carbohydrate baseline diet, about a quarter of a pound per week occurring in the ketogenic diet. Essentially, body fat reduction slowed down in the ketogenic diet and was inferior to the high carbohydrate phase of the diet. Now, this is interesting, as despite the initial rise in metabolic rate in the ketogenic diet, this demonstrated a slowing in fat loss, essentially highlighting that the increase in metabolic rate was expending other substrates. So, where was this increase in energy going towards? Well, in fact, the energy was being used to mobilize protein, as it's used tactfully in a process called gluconeogenesis to create glucose. As a result, the ketogenic phase of the study increased nitrogen excretion and reduced body protein instead of fat mass. So, key take-homes from this paper. Well, the theory of a diet that suppresses insulin doesn't result in a metabolic advantage compared to a diet that increases insulin levels when protein and calories are matched between groups. Even a diet that contained 148 grams of sugar, which receives a lot of the bad stigma in the low-carb realm, essentially attained greater fat loss than a diet containing just 5% of its energy from carbohydrates when calories were fixed. An increase in metabolism through a very low-carb diet appears to occur acutely and largely down to an increase in substrates to maintain blood glucose levels. However, this increase in metabolism over the first 10 days waned quickly, highlighting that the metabolic demand to settle into a keto state reduces the metabolic demand of gluconeogenesis as the diet continues, and as a result, the loss of protein will reduce over time. Essentially, using the tightest controls possible, the study provided strong evidence that there is no metabolic advantage in going low carb in obese, overweight men compared to a calorie and protein maxed high carbohydrate diet, refuting the theory of the carbohydrate insulin model. So in summary, a ketogenic diet can absolutely aid fat loss, but it does this through only achieving a calorie deficit. For some, this may be a sustainable way to diet because they enjoy a high-fat diet, and in some circumstances, it may be plausible for an athlete to use such a diet to attain greater rates of water loss, permitting it doesn't impinge on exercise performance. On the other hand, there are many examples where going keto isn't sustainable and completely unnecessary in a bid to lose body fat. As practitioners, we are not just trying to provide tools for someone to perform better now, but also to ensure they maintain a healthy relationship with food in the future too. Ultimately, the perennial question of is a calorie in the context of body composition and fat loss still reigns true, and the hormone hypothesis of insulin being the culprit for fat gain just doesn't hold up when vigorously tested in science. For further reading on the topic, here are 6 papers I'd recommend you go away and read. Finally, a special thanks to James Krieger for initially changing my perspective on the hormone insulin in relation to fat loss when he first wrote a fantastic blog series titled Insulin and Undeserved Bad Reputation of 30 years ago. I've attached a link to the blog series. Also, a special thanks to the work of Kevin Hall and his team, who are consistently delivering brilliant science in the field of metabolism. His team are truly leading the way in this area. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.